The courthouse door slammed open with such force that the security guard jumped to his feet. Adana Okafor stumbled backward onto the polished marble floor, her red ochre dress billowing around her legs, her leather handbag spilling its contents across the lobby. The impact knocked the breath from her lungs. Above her stood Chukwuemeka, her husband of 12 years, his face twisted with a rage she'd never seen before. "Get out of my sight, you lying woman!" His voice echoed to the Lagos High Court building, bouncing off the cream-colored walls adorned with portraits of stern-faced judges. "You think you can trap me with another man's child? You think I'm a fool? What would you do if you walked in on this? Hit like if you've been betrayed, and comment below where you're watching from." Adana's hands trembled as she gathered her scattered belongings, her phone, her lipstick, the crumpled DNA test results that had just destroyed her world. Around them, lawyers in black robes paused mid-stride. Court clerks pressed themselves against the walls. A woman with a baby on her back covered her mouth in shock. The security guard finally moved forward, but Chukwuemeka was already walking away, his Italian leather shoes clicking against the floor with finality. "Emeka, please," Adana whispered, but he didn't turn back. He disappeared through the heavy wooden doors that led to the courtroom where, just moments ago, the judge had dismissed his paternity case, where the DNA results had confirmed what Adana had known all along, that 7-year-old Chidera was his daughter, their daughter. But Chukwuemeka hadn't believed it. He'd called her a cheat, a manipulator, a woman who'd tried to pin another man's child on him. And when the judge ruled in her favor, ordering him to resume child support payments he'd stopped 6 months ago, he'd lost control completely. Adana pulled herself to her feet, ignoring the offered hand of a sympathetic clerk. Her knees ached. Her pride hurt worse. She could feel dozens of eyes on her, could imagine the whispers that would spread through Victoria Island by evening. "Did you hear about Chukwuemeka, Okafor's wife? The one he threw out of the courthouse like rubbish?" She'd lived in Lagos all her 34 years, had built a reputation as a dignified woman, a good mother, a faithful wife. Now, in less than 5 minutes, Chukwuemeka had publicly branded her a fraud. The thing was, Adana had never cheated, not once in 12 years of marriage. But 6 months ago, Chukwuemeka had come home from a business trip to Abuja with accusations already formed, with suspicions already hardened into certainty. Someone had poisoned his mind. Someone had shown him old photos, told him lies, made him question Chidera's paternity. Adana had agreed to the DNA test immediately, confident it would prove her innocence. She'd waited 3 weeks for the results, watching her husband grow colder each day, watching him move his clothes to the guest room, watching him stop kissing their daughter goodnight. When the test came back positive, 99.9% probability that he was Chidera's father, she cried with relief. But Chukwuemeka had only grown angrier. He'd accused the laboratory of being bribed. He demanded a second test from a different facility. That test had confirmed the first. So he demanded a third, and a fourth. Each one came back the same. Each one proved Adana had told the truth. Yet somehow, the truth hadn't set her free. It had only made Chukwuemeka more determined to escape what he now called a trap. He'd stopped paying school fees. He'd emptied their joint account. He'd filed for divorce, citing irretrievable breakdown of marriage, and claiming he'd been deceived into fatherhood. The judge today had ruled against him on the child support issue, but the divorce case was still pending. Adana walked slowly toward the exit, her head high despite everything. Outside, Lagos traffic roared along Igbosir Road. Hawkers sold pure water and plantain chips. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly on the city's metal roofs and glass towers. This was her home. These were her people. She would not let Chukwuemeka's madness drive her away. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You should check your husband's Instagram. The truth you're looking for is right there." Adana's fingers shook as she opened the app. She navigated to Chukwuemeka's profile, which she hadn't checked in months. His latest post was from 2 hours ago, a photo of him and a woman Adana recognized immediately, Ngozi Adelik, her former best friend, the woman who'd been maid of honor at their wedding. The caption read, "Sometimes God removes people from your life to make room for better ones. Grateful for truth and new beginnings." Hashtag blessed beyond measure. Hashtag real love. In the comments, Ngozi had replied with a heart emoji and the words, 7 years of waiting, but worth it. Our daughter deserved her real father. Adana's vision blurred. Her knees buckled. Their daughter? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think happens next? Comment below and tell me, should Adana fight back or walk away? The Nokia phone slipped from Adana's fingers and clattered onto the concrete steps of the courthouse. She stood frozen, staring at nothing, while Lagos traffic honked and swerved around her. 7 years. Ngozi had written 7 years of waiting, the same age as Chitara. Adana's mind raced backward through time like a broken film reel. 7 years ago, she'd been pregnant with Chitara, suffering through morning sickness, so severe she could barely leave the bathroom. Chukwemeka had traveled constantly for work, or so he'd said. And Ngozi? Sweet, supportive Ngozi had been there almost every day, bringing pepper soup and ginger tea, rubbing Adana's swollen feet, promising that everything would be fine. Madam, you go under motor? A taxi driver leaned out his window, concern creasing his weathered face. Adana shook her head, bending slowly to retrieve her phone. The screen had cracked in a spider web pattern across Ngozi's smiling face, but the words were still visible. Our daughter deserves her real father. Not their daughter, meaning Ngozi and some other man. Their daughter meaning Ngozi and Chukwemeka. The realization hit Adana like a Lagos Danfo bus at full speed. Chukwemeka hadn't suddenly gone mad 6 months ago. He hadn't been poisoned by random rumors. He'd been planning this. He and Ngozi had been planning this together. The fake paternity accusations, the public humiliation, the financial abandonment. It had all been orchestrated to make Adana look like the villain while they played the victims. But why? The DNA tests proved Chitara was Chukwemeka's biological daughter. Unless, Adana's stomach lurched, unless they were claiming Ngozi had another child. A child Chukwemeka had fathered 7 years ago, while Adana was pregnant with Chitara, a secret child they'd been raising together while Chukwemeka played the role of faithful husband. Her fingers flew across her cracked phone screen, scrolling through Ngozi's Instagram profile. There, posted 3 months ago, a photo of a little girl in a pink dress, her face turned away from the camera, standing in front of a birthday cake shaped like a princess castle. The caption, "My heart turned 7 today. Mommy loves you forever, Kemi." Kemi, the name meant cherish me in Yoruba. How fitting for a hidden child. Adana's hands shook so violently she nearly dropped the phone again. She steadied herself against the courthouse wall, its warm stone rough against her palm. Around her, Lagos continued its chaotic dance. Motorcycles weaving through traffic, street vendors calling out their wares, businessmen in Igbada robes hurrying toward important meetings. The world kept spinning while hers fell apart. She needed proof. She needed to see this child with her own eyes, to confirm what her heart was screaming, but her mind struggled to accept. Adana opened her Uber app with trembling fingers. She knew exactly where Ngozi lived, a modest 2-bedroom flat in Yaba, where Adana herself had visited dozens of times over the years, never once suspecting the truth. The ride took 45 minutes through crushing traffic. Adana sat in the back seat, her mind cataloging every memory, every moment that now took on sinister new meaning. The way Ngozi had always asked detailed questions about Chukwemeka's schedule. The times Ngozi had canceled plans at the last minute, claiming work emergencies. The expensive handbag Ngozi had carried last Christmas, the same brand Chukwemeka had told Adana they couldn't afford. "Madam, we don reach," the driver announced, pulling up outside a faded yellow building with rust-stained balconies. Adana paid and stepped out into the dusty street. Ngozi's flat was on the 2nd floor. She could see laundry hanging from the balcony, children's clothes, small and pink. Her legs felt like lead as she climbed the exterior stairs, each step bringing her closer to a truth she didn't want to face. She knocked. Once. Twice. On the 3rd knock, the door swung open. Ngozi stood there in a house dress, her hair wrapped in a silk scarf. For a moment, neither woman spoke. Then Ngozi's eyes widened with something that looked almost like relief. "Adana," she breathed. "I wonder when you figured out." Before Adana could respond, a small voice called from inside the flat. "Mommy, is Daddy here?" A little girl appeared beside Ngozi, clutching a worn teddy bear. She had Chukwemeka's deep-set eyes, his broad forehead, his exact smile. The resemblance was unmistakable, undeniable, devastating. But that wasn't what made Adana's world tilt sideways. The girl, Kemi, was wearing a school uniform. The same green and white checkered uniform that Chitara wore. The same logo on the pocket. The same school. They'd been attending the same school. For how long? Had they played together at recess, sat in the same classrooms, eaten in the same cafeteria? Two half-sisters who didn't know they were related? "You've been sending her to St. Teresa's," Adana whispered. "With my daughter. You've been—" "Yes," Ngozi interrupted, her voice flat. "For 2 years now. Emeka pays the fees. He picks her up on Wednesdays and Fridays. He takes her for ice cream at ShopRite. He reads her bedtime stories." She paused, her lips curving into something too bitter to be called a smile. "He's been the father to Kemi that he stopped being to Chitara 6 months ago." Adana's vision swam. Why are you telling me this?" "Because," Ngozi said, stepping aside to reveal the flat's interior, "you need to see everything before you decide how to fight back. And believe me, Adana, you're going to need to fight." Inside the flat, spread across a small dining table, were documents, bank statements, property deeds, insurance policies, all in Chukwemeka's name, all listing Ngozi and Kemi as beneficiaries. What would you do in Adana's position? Could you forgive a friend who did this? Drop a comment, and don't forget to share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Hit subscribe so you never miss what happens next. Adana stepped into the flat as if walking through a nightmare. The small living room smelled of jollof rice and betrayal. Children's drawings covered one wall. Crude crayon sketches signed Kemi in unsteady letters. On the shelf sat framed photographs. Chukwemeka pushing Kemi on a swing. Chukwemeka and Kemi eating suya at a roadside stand. Chukwemeka carrying Kemi on his shoulders at Lekki Beach. All the things he'd stopped doing with Chitara. "Sit down," Ngozi said, gesturing to a worn sofa. Her voice carried no warmth, but no hostility either. Just exhaustion. "You came for answers. I'll give them to you." Adana remained standing, her eyes fixed on the documents spread across the table, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. "You were my friend, my sister. I trusted you with everything." "I know." Ngozi poured herself a glass of water from a plastic jug, her hands remarkably steady. "And I hated myself for it, every single day. But I loved him first, Adana, before you even met him." The words hit like a slap. "What are you talking about?" "I met Emeka at his cousin's wedding. You introduced us." "Exactly." Ngozi sat down heavily, suddenly looking 10 years older than her 33 years. "I introduced you because he asked me to. We've been dating for 8 months. Then he saw you across the room in that gold dress, and everything changed. He said you look like the kind of woman a man builds an empire with. Traditional, respectable, from a good family." Adana's legs finally gave out. She sank onto the sofa, her mind reeling. "You're lying." "Am I?" Ngozi pulled out her phone, scrolling through old messages. She held it up. Text messages dated from 2012, a year before Adana's wedding. Messages that were intimate, promising, filled with the kind of words lovers share in the dark. "I love you, Ngozi. We just need to be patient. After I marry her, nothing changes between us. You're my heart. The wedding is just for show, for my father's business connections. You understand, don't you?" Adana's throat closed. She grabbed the phone, scrolling frantically through message after message. Years of messages. Promises that Chukwemeka would leave Adana once his father's company was secured in his name. Promises that Ngozi would be the one he truly lived for. "He got me pregnant 3 months after your wedding," Ngozi continued, her voice hollow. "I wanted to tell you. I swear I did. But he said it would destroy everything. his family's reputation, his business deals, your father's political connections. He said if I loved him, I'd wait. So you waited. Adana's voice came out strangled. While I was pregnant with Chitara, you were pregnant with Kemi. While I was vomiting every morning, you were bringing me soup and lying to my face. Yes. Ngozi didn't flinch from the accusation. We had our daughters 4 months apart. And for 7 years, I believed him when he said he'd leave you, that he was just waiting for the right time. That once Chitara was older, once your father retired from politics, once his business was more stable. She laughed bitterly. There was always a reason to wait. Then why now? Adana demanded. Why blow everything up 6 months ago? Why the fake paternity accusations? Ngozi's expression hardened. Because I got tired of waiting. Because Kemi started asking why Daddy doesn't live with us. Because I'm 33 years old, and I've wasted my entire adult life being a secret. She leaned forward. 6 months ago, I gave Chukwemeka an ultimatum. Divorce you and marry me, or I'd tell you everything. Show you all the proof. Take him to court for Kemi's child support. The pieces fell into place in Adana's mind like shards of broken glass. So, he chose to destroy my reputation first. To make it look like I was the cheater, the liar. To make everyone believe Chitara wasn't his child. He panicked. Ngozi said, he thought if people believed you trapped him with another man's baby, the divorce would be quick. You'd be too ashamed to fight. He could keep his reputation intact. Marry me quietly, and everyone would sympathize with him for being deceived. But the DNA tests proved him wrong. 4 times. Ngozi's laugh was sharp and mirthless. And instead of admitting the truth, he just got angrier, more desperate. He even suggested we claim the lab results were forged. Adana stood abruptly, pacing the small room, her mind spun with rage and grief and a cold, calculating fury she'd never felt before. Why are you telling me this, Ngozi? What do you want? Ngozi met her eyes. Because he's playing both of us. Look at these documents. She spread the papers wider. This house deed? He put it in his mother's name last month. These bank accounts? He emptied them and opened new ones I don't have access to. This life insurance policy listing Kemi as beneficiary? He canceled it 2 weeks ago. Adana stared at the documents, her legal training from her brief time as a paralegal kicking in. She saw what Ngozi was showing her, a pattern of a man systematically protecting his assets, preparing to cut both women out of his life. He's planning to leave both of us, Ngozi said quietly. Once the divorce is final, once he's legally free of you, he'll disappear. Maybe abroad, maybe just to Abuja with a new woman, a new life. We'll both be left with nothing while he starts over. The bastard. The word escaped Adana's lips before she could stop it. Yes. Ngozi stood, moving to the window that overlooked the busy Yaba street below. So here's what I'm proposing. We stop fighting each other. We work together. We take everything from him before he can take it from us. Adana wanted to scream. She wanted to grab Ngozi by her silk headscarf and shake her until the lies fell out. This woman had destroyed her marriage, slept with her husband, birthed a secret child. And now she wanted an alliance? But the documents on the table told a story Adana couldn't ignore. Chukwemeka wasn't just a cheating husband. He was a calculating predator who'd spent years manipulating 2 women, playing them against each other, while he built an exit strategy. What exactly are you suggesting? Adana asked carefully. Ngozi turned from the window. I have access to his passwords, his computer, his files. Everything he thinks I don't know about. And you're still legally married to him. You have rights to his assets, his property, his business shares. You want to steal from him. I want justice. Ngozi's eyes blazed. For both of us. For our daughters. He owes us 7 years of lies. I say we collect. Before Dana could respond, her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered, her heart hammering. Mrs. Okafor? A woman's professional voice. This is Mercy from First Bank, Nigeria. I'm calling about your joint account with your husband. We received instructions to close the account and transfer all funds. We need your signature to... Wait, Adana interrupted. What transfer? I didn't authorize any transfer. A pause. According to our records, your husband submitted the paperwork this morning. The transfer is scheduled for 5 p.m. today. If you don't come in to stop it, all funds will be moved to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Adana checked her watch. 3:47 p.m. She had 73 minutes to get to Victoria Island through Lagos traffic. 73 minutes before Chukwuemeka took everything. The betrayal runs deeper than we thought. What would you do? Team up with the enemy or go it alone? Comment below and don't forget to like and subscribe. Share this with someone who loves a good revenge story. The taxi tore through Lagos traffic like a yellow demon possessed. Adana sat in the back seat, her phone pressed to her ear, while Ngozi sat beside her, an alliance born not of forgiveness but of fury. Outside, the city blurred past. Street hawkers dodging between cars, buses belching black smoke, the eternal construction sites that have become permanent fixtures of the landscape. Yes, I'm on my way, Adana said into the phone, her voice tight with controlled panic. Don't let anyone touch that account until I get there. Not my husband, not anyone. She hung up and turned to Ngozi. You said you have his passwords. I need you to log into his business email right now. Ngozi's fingers flew across her phone screen. What am I looking for? Anything about offshore accounts, property transfers, business deals, anything dated within the last 6 months. Adana watched the traffic ahead. They were stuck behind a tanker truck on a corridor road, exhaust fumes filling the air. If he's moving money to the Cayman Islands, there has to be a paper trail. Found something. Ngozi's face had gone pale. Email from his lawyer, dated 2 weeks ago. Subject line, Asset Protection Strategy for Divorce Proceedings. Adana snatched the phone, reading rapidly. The email laid out everything in cold, clinical language. Chukwuemeka had been planning this for months. Quietly transferring property into his mother's name, moving business shares to offshore shell companies, even taking out loans against their matrimonial home in Ikoyi without Adana's knowledge. But there was more. A section titled Mistress Liability Management. Regarding the paternity situation with NA, the email read, I recommend immediate cessation of all financial support once divorce is finalized. The child is not legally entitled to inheritance, as she was born outside wedlock. Any previous promises made should be considered null and void. Suggest relocating to Abuja office permanently to avoid complications. Ngozi's breath caught. He was going to abandon Kemi. After everything, after I gave up my 20s, my reputation, my life, he was going to throw us away like garbage. Welcome to my world, Adana said grimly. She forwarded the email to her own phone, then kept scrolling. More emails, more evidence. A pattern of calculated cruelty that made her stomach turn. The taxi finally broke free of the traffic jam, speeding toward Victoria Island. Adana checked the time. 4:23 p.m. 37 minutes left. Her phone buzzed. A text from her younger sister, Kayamika. Ani, why is Uncle Emeka's car parked outside your house with 2 moving trucks? What's happening? Ice flooded Adana's veins. He's at the house. Right now, he's taking everything. Driver, change of plans. Ngozi said sharply. Banana Island, number 47, Ogunlisi Close. Now. The driver swerved, earning angry horns from surrounding vehicles, but Adana barely noticed. Her mind raced. Chukwuemeka was at their home, their matrimonial property, stealing her belongings while she chases bank accounts across Lagos. He'd orchestrated this perfectly, dividing her attention, keeping her off balance. But he'd made one mistake. He'd underestimated what 2 angry women could do when they stopped fighting each other. Call your sister back, Ngozi said. Tell her to record everything. Every item they load into those trucks. Every person who enters that house. And tell her not to let them into your bedroom. That's where you kept your important documents, right? Adana nodded, already dialing. Kayamika answered on the first ring. Edo, what's going on? These men say they have legal right to... Kayamika, listen carefully. I need you to be my eyes and ears. Start recording video on your phone. Film everything, the trucks, the license plates, every item they remove. And do not, under any circumstances, let anyone into the master bedroom. Lock if you have to. Tell them I'm on my way with police. Police? Ada, you're scaring me. Just do it, please. I'll explain everything later. The taxi screeched to a halt outside Adana's house. A beautiful 3-story building with cream-colored walls and a red tile roof, surrounded by a high fence and manicured gardens. The house she'd helped design. The home where she'd given birth to Chitara in the upstairs bedroom when labor came too fast to reach the hospital. 2 large moving trucks sat in the driveway, their backs open like hungry mouths. Men in dirty T-shirts carried furniture out the front door, her antique dining table, the leather sofa from Italy, the wedding china that had been a gift from Chukwuemeka's late grandmother. And there, supervising it all with his phone to his ear, stood Chukwuemeka himself. Adana stepped out of the taxi, her heels clicking against the pavement. Neighbors had gathered on their balconies, watching the spectacle. Lagos loved drama, and this was prime entertainment. Stop. Adana's voice rang out across the compound. Stop right now. Chukwuemeka turned, and for a moment, genuine surprise flickered across his face. Then his expression hardened into contempt. You have no right to be here. This is my property. Our property, Adana corrected, walking toward him with Ngozi at her side. Matrimonial property. And you need a court order to remove anything from it. That's when Chukwuemeka saw Ngozi. His face went white, then red, then white again. What is she doing here? What did you tell her? Everything. Ngozi said coolly. Every lie, every promise, every email to your lawyer about cutting us both loose. You went through my emails? His voice rose to a shout. That's illegal. So is stealing from your wife, Adana interrupted. So is taking loans against jointly owned property without consent. So is attempting to transfer marital assets to offshore accounts. She pulled out her phone, showing him the screenshot of his lawyer's email. Did you really think we wouldn't figure it out? Chukwuemeka's jaw worked, but no words came out. Around them, the movers had stopped working, watching the confrontation with undisguised interest. One of them was filming on his phone. By tomorrow, this would be all over WhatsApp. Here's what's going to happen, Adana said, her voice deadly calm. You're going to call off these trucks. You're going to cancel that bank transfer. And then you're going to sit down with us and negotiate like a civilized human being. Because if you don't, I will take every single piece of evidence we have to the police, to your business partners, to your church, and to your mother. You wouldn't dare, Chukwuemeka hissed. My mother would destroy you. Your mother, Ngozi said, stepping forward, doesn't know about Kemi, does she? Imagine how she'd feel learning her son has a 7-year-old granddaughter he's been hiding. Imagine what she'd do to her precious boy's reputation. Chukwuemeka's face crumpled. For a moment, he looked like a cornered animal, dangerous and desperate. Then his expression changed to something calculating, almost amused. You think you've won? He laughed, a harsh sound without humor. You think a few emails and threats will stop me? I've been 10 steps ahead of you this entire time. He gestured to the movers. Continue loading. Everything goes. Sir, one of the movers hesitated, but the madam said, I said continue. Chukwuemeka roared. That's when Kayamika appeared in the doorway, her phone held high, recording everything. And beside her stood someone Adana hadn't expected to see. Chukwuemeka's mother, Mama Okafor, resplendent in full traditional attire, her face carved from stone, her eyes blazed with the kind of fury only a Nigerian mother can summon. Chukwuemeka Okafor, she said, her voice quiet but carrying the weight of judgment. What have you done to this family? The mother-in-law has entered the chat. Will she save Adana or side with her son? Drop your predictions in the comments and smash that subscribe button. Mama Okafor descended the front steps like a queen approaching her throne, her wrapper rustling with each deliberate step. She was a formidable woman, 68 years old, owner of 3 successful fabric shops in Lagos, and a woman whose word could make or break reputations in their social circle. Chukwuemeka had inherited his father's business sense, but his mother's iron will. Mama, this is not what it looks like. Chukwamika started, but his mother raised one ring-adorned hand, and he fell silent like a scolded child. Not what it looks like. Mama Okafor's voice could have cut glass. My son is removing furniture from his matrimonial home with hired thugs while his wife stands outside like a beggar. What exactly should it look like? She turned her gaze to Adana, and for a moment, Adana braced herself for condemnation. But what she saw in the older woman's eyes wasn't anger. It was disappointment mixed with something that looked almost like apology. Adana, my daughter, Mama Okafor said, using the affectionate term that now felt weighted with new meaning. Come inside. You, too, Kayamika. And you, she looked at Ngozi, her eyes narrowing as recognition dawned. You're Ngozi, the friend from the wedding. Why are you here? Because I'm the other woman, Ngozi said simply, lifting her chin. The one your son has been sleeping with for 13 years. The mother of his 7-year-old daughter. The words dropped like stones into still water. Even the movers froze. Neighbors on nearby balconies leaned forward, straining to hear. A Okada driver slowed his motorcycle to a crawl as he passed, nearly causing an accident. Mama Okafor's face remained impassive, but her knuckles whitened where she gripped her wrapper. Inside, she repeated. All of you. This is not a street performance for entertainment. They move into the house. Adana, Ngozi, Kayamika, Mama Okafor, and finally, reluctantly, Chukwamika. The movers retreated to their trucks, understanding that their services were temporarily suspended. The living room still held most of its furniture, though bare patches on the walls showed where paintings had already been removed. Mama Okafor sat in a high-back chair that had always been reserved for elders during family gatherings. She gestured for the others to sit. No one disobeyed. 13 years, she said, looking at her son. You've been living a double life for 13 years? Mama, it's complicated. Complicated? The word exploded from her mouth. Complicated is choosing between 2 job offers. Complicated is planning a wedding. This, she gestured wildly around the room, this is wickedness. This is the behavior of a man without home training, without fear of God. Chukwamika's jaw tightened. You don't understand the pressure I was under. Father wanted me to marry someone from a good family, someone who would look right at business dinners. Adana was perfect for that. But Ngozi was what? Mama Okafor demanded. Not good enough for your father's business associates? Not light-skinned enough? Not from the right family? Her voice dripped with scorn. I raised you better than this, Chukwamika. I raised you to be a man of honor. Honor? Chukwamika stood abruptly. You want to talk about honor? What about the honor of being trapped in a marriage you didn't want? What about? You stood in a church before God and made vows. Mama Okafor's shout silenced him. Nobody forced you. Nobody held a gun to your head. You chose to marry Adana. You chose to make those promises. And if your heart was elsewhere, you should have been man enough to say so before the wedding, not after you planted a child in another woman's womb. Adana had never heard Mama Okafor speak this way. So raw, so angry, so disappointed. The older woman had always been proper, controlled, the epitome of respectability. But now that facade had cracked, revealing the human beneath. And you? Mama Okafor turned to Ngozi. You were her friend, her bridesmaid. How could you betray her like this? I loved him first, Ngozi said quietly, before Dana even knew he existed. But I wasn't good enough. My father was just a teacher. My mother sold Accra at the market. I didn't have the connections, the pedigree, the polish. Her voice broke. So I became the secret, the shameful thing hidden in the shadows. And I let myself believe that someday he would choose me. 7 years you've been waiting for someday, Adana said, her voice thick with emotion. 7 years of helping him destroy me from the inside. Coming to my house, eating my food, playing with my daughter, all while sleeping with my husband. I know, Ngozi whispered, and I'm sorry, truly sorry. But I was drowning too, Adana, just in a different ocean. Mama Okafor closed her eyes, her hands pressed to her temples. When she opened them again, she looked a decade older. Where is this child? This Kemi? With my mother and Yaba. Ngozi answered. Bring her here. Tomorrow. I want to see my granddaughter. She said the word with firm deliberation, establishing a fact that Chukwemeka clearly hadn't wanted acknowledged. And Chidera? Where is she? At school, Adana said. She gets out at 3:30. My neighbor usually picks her up, but with everything happening. I'll get her, Kayamika volunteered. I can bring her back here. No, Mama Okafor said firmly. Take her to my house in Suralere. All this chaos, she gestured around the disrupted room. She doesn't need to see it. Let her stay with me for a few days while we sort this madness out. Chukwemeka had been silent, standing by the window with his arms crossed. Now he turned back to face them. This is touching, really. Very emotional. But it doesn't change anything. The divorce is going forward. The asset division is going forward. And I'm moving to Abuja next month, whether any of you like it or not. With whose money? Mama Okafor asked sharply. With whose business? Did you forget who gave you the capital to start your import company? Did you forget whose name is on the paperwork as co-owner? Chukwemeka's face went slack. Mama, you wouldn't. Wouldn't what? Wouldn't protect my investment? Wouldn't ensure my granddaughters are taken care of? Wouldn't stop my son from making the biggest mistake of his life? She stood, drawing herself up to her full height. I built my wealth from nothing, Chukwemeka. I sold fabric in the sun and rain, while your father was still trying to find his footing. I put my money into your business because I believed in you, but I will not. Her voice rose to a crescendo. I will not let you use my investment to run away from your responsibilities. So what do you want me to do? Chukwemeka shouted. Stay in a marriage I don't want? Pretend to be happy? Lie a lie. No, Mama Okafor said coldly. I want you to face the consequences of your choices like a man. I want you to provide for both your daughters equally. I want you to split your assets fairly with the woman you married before God. And I want you to stop acting like a spoiled child who didn't get his favorite toy. Adana's phone buzzed. She glanced down at the screen, and her blood ran cold. A message from an unknown number, with a photo attached. The photo showed Chidera's classroom. Empty desks, scattered books, and a message written on the blackboard in red marker. Your daughter is safe. For now. Drop the divorce case, or you'll never see her again. Adana's scream shattered the tense silence. The phone clattered to the floor. Someone took Chidera, she gasped. Someone took my baby. Kayamika grabbed the phone, her face draining of color. The neighbor, Mrs. Badmus. She always picks up Chidera. She would never. Call her. Adana was already grabbing her car keys, her hands shaking so violently she could barely hold them. Call her now. Kayamika dialed, putting the phone on speaker. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then, hello? Mrs. Badmus, where's Chidera? Do you have her? Chidera? The older woman's voice sounded confused. No, dear. A man came to the school, said he was her father's driver. Had a note from you saying to pick her up early. The teacher let her go with him around 2 p.m. The room spun. Adana reached for the wall to steady herself. What man? What did he look like? Tall, wearing a black shirt. He had the note with your signature. At least, it looked like your signature. We thought, oh God, did I do something wrong? Adana couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Her 7-year-old daughter was gone, taken by someone who'd forged her signature, and it had been 4 hours already. For hours her baby had been missing while Adana fought over money and property and revenge. She turned to Chukwemeka, who stood frozen, his face ashen. Did you do this? Is this another one of your games? No, I swear, I would never. For the first time since the courthouse, he looked genuinely terrified. Chidera is my daughter. Whatever else I've done, I wouldn't. Then who? Adana screamed. Who took her? Ngozi's voice cut through the chaos, quiet but certain. His business partner, Adekunle. Everyone turned to stare at her. What are you talking about? Chukwemeka demanded. Ngozi pulled out her phone, scrolling through the email she'd accessed earlier. 3 weeks ago, You received a message from Adacunnel. He said you owed him money, a lot of money. Money you borrowed to set up those offshore accounts. Money you promised to pay back after the divorce settlement came through. She looked up, her eyes hard. He threatened to expose everything to your business associates if you didn't pay. You told him to wait. So maybe, her voice dropped to a whisper, maybe he decided to collect his debt another way. A kidnapping. Who is Adacunnel? And what else is Chukwuemeka hiding? Comment your theories below. Don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't believe what happens next. The Lagos police station in Oberlin smelled of sweat, old paperwork, and desperation. Adana sat on a hard wooden bench, her body numb, her mind racing through every nightmare scenario a mother could imagine. Beside her, Mama Okafor prayed quietly in Igbo, her rosary beads clicking through her fingers. Kayamika paced a narrow corridor, her phone pressed to her ear as she called everyone they knew, teachers, neighbors, relatives, hoping someone had seen Chidera. It had been 6 hours since the kidnapping. 6 hours of her baby girl, in the hands of strangers. Chukwuemeka stood at the desk, arguing with a police sergeant whose patience was wearing thin. I'm telling you, I know who has her. His name is Adacunnel Ogunlai. He runs an import-export business in Apapa. You need to send officers there now. Oga, calm down, the sergeant said wearily. We cannot just raid a businessman's office without evidence. This Adacunnel, does he have history of violence? Criminal record? No, but... Then we must follow procedure. We have sent officers to check the school. We are reviewing security footage. We will question this Mrs. Badmus who released a child. These things take time. Time! Adana's voice cracked as she stood. My daughter doesn't have time. She's 7 years old. She's afraid of the dark. She has asthma. She needs her inhaler every night before bed. And you're talking about procedure? The sergeant's expression softened. Madam, I understand. I have children too. But if we move too fast, we could scare the kidnapper. Make him do something rash. Better we be careful, be strategic. He's right, said a new voice from the doorway. Everyone turned. A woman stood there, mid-40s, wearing a simple black pantsuit, her hair pulled back in a tight bun. She had the kind of face that revealed nothing, the kind of eyes that saw everything. She flashed an ID at the sergeant. Detective Amaran Nwachukwu, Special Crimes Unit. I heard the call coming about the missing child. Mind if I take over? The sergeant looked relieved. Be my guest, detective. These people are driving me mad with their noise. Detective Nwachukwu gestured for Adana's group to follow her into a small interrogation room. Once they were all seated, she pulled out a notebook and a recording device. Let's start from the beginning, she said. And I mean the real beginning, not the version you told the sergeant. The truth. For the next hour, everything spilled out. The affair, the secret child, the divorce proceedings, the offshore accounts, the threats from Adacunnel about unpaid debts. Ngozi even showed the detective the emails she'd accessed from Chukwuemeka's account. Detective Nwachukwu listened without interruption, taking notes in quick, efficient strokes. When they finished, she sat back and studied Chukwuemeka with the intensity of a scientist examining a particularly interesting specimen. How much do you owe Adacunnel? She asked. Chukwuemeka shifted uncomfortably. 47 million naira. Adana gasped. 47 million? Where did? How did? I needed it quickly, Chukwuemeka said, not meeting her eyes. To set up the offshore accounts, to buy property in Abuja, to prepare for the move. The banks wouldn't give me a loan that size without collateral, and I couldn't use our house because your name is on it. So I went to Adacunnel. He said it was no problem, that we were friends, that I could pay him back after the divorce settlement. But the settlement is taking longer than you expected, Detective Nwachukwu said. And now Adacunnel is getting impatient. He called me last week, Chukwuemeka admitted, said I had until the end of the month to pay him back, or he would find other ways to collect. I thought he meant he'd expose me to my business partners, maybe take me to court. I never thought, his voice broke, I never thought he'd take Chidera. Detective Nwachukwu pulled out her phone and made a call. Johnson, I need you to run a background check on Adacunnel Ogunlai. Import-export business, and papa. Yes, that Adacunnel. I want to know everywhere he's been in the last 48 hours, everyone he's contacted, and any properties he owns in Lagos or neighboring states. She hung up and turned back to them. Adacunnel is known to us, not for kidnapping. He's too smart for that. But for loan sharking, intimidation, occasional violence when people don't pay. Oh, God, Adana whispered. He's going to hurt her. Not if we move fast. The detective stood. But I need your cooperation. All of you. That means no more secrets, no more lies, and no more running off to play detective on your own. She looked pointedly at Ngozi. Breaking into someone's email is illegal, even if it helps our case. And you, she turned to Chukwuemeka, are going to call Adacunnel right now and tell him you're ready to negotiate. I don't have the money, Chukwuemeka protested. Even if I liquidated everything, I couldn't get $47 million together in time. We're not actually going to pay him, Detective Nwachukwu said with a thin smile. We're going to set a trap. He wants money. We'll promise him money. And when he shows up to collect, we'll get Chidera back. She pulled out a small black device. A wire. You will wear this during the conversation. Say you can get him $20 million by tomorrow if he returns your daughter. Pick a public place for the exchange. Somewhere we can position officers without being obvious. Chukwuemeka took the device with trembling hands. And if he doesn't agree, if he wants a full amount, then we negotiate, the detective said. Kidnappers want money, not dead children. Dead children can't be ransomed. So he'll deal as long as he thinks he's getting paid. Mama Okafor spoke up for the first time since entering the station. Detective, what if he hurts Chidera before the exchange? What if she's already... She couldn't finish the sentence. Then we pray he hasn't... Detective Nwachukwu said bluntly. But statistics are on our side. Most kidnappings in Lagos are financial. The child is leverage, not the target. As long as Adacunnel thinks he can get his money, he'll keep her safe. It wasn't much comfort, but it was all they had. Chukwuemeka dialed Adacunnel's number, the phone on speaker so everyone could hear. It rang 4 times before a smooth, cultured voice answered. Chukwuemeka, I was beginning to think you'd forgotten about me. I haven't forgotten, Chukwuemeka said, his voice steady despite the sweat beading on his forehead. I want to talk about payment. Do you? Adacunnel sounded amused. That's interesting timing. Very interesting. I can get you $20 million by tomorrow. Cash. But I need more time for the rest. A pause. Then, $20 million is a start. But it's not even half of what you owe me. I know, but it's all I can liquidate quickly. Unless you want to wait another 6 months for the divorce settlement. I'm tired of waiting, my friend. Very tired. Which is why I decided to motivate you. Chukwuemeka's jaw clenched. Where's she? Where's my daughter? Your daughter? Adacunnel laughed. A cold sound. I thought you spent the last 6 months claiming she wasn't yours. Make up your mind. Chukwuemeka, is she your daughter or not? She's mine, Chukwuemeka said, his voice breaking. She's mine and I want her back. Please. She's just a child. She has nothing to do with this. Everything has to do with everything, Adacunnel said philosophically. You wanted to protect your assets during your divorce. You borrowed my money to do it. Now you must pay. It's very simple. Then let's meet tomorrow. I'll bring the $20 million. You bring Chidera. We'll make the exchange and discuss payment plans for the rest. Another pause. Adana could hear muffled sound in the background. Traffic, maybe, or a television. Was Chidera there? Was she crying? Was she hurt? Fine, Adacunnel said finally. Tomorrow at noon. Lekki Beach near the resort. Come alone. No police, no family, no tricks. Just you, the money, and your son concerned for fatherhood. How do I know you'll bring her? You don't, Adacunnel said simply. But what choice do you have? He hung up. Detective Nwachukwu was already on her phone, barking orders to her team. I want plainclothes officers positioned around Lekki Beach by 11 a.m. Snipers on the rooftops, if we can get permission. Undercover agents posing as tourists. And someone get me surveillance footage from every bank between here and Apapa. I want to know if Atacon has been withdrawing cash, renting vehicles, anything unusual. She turned to Chukwamika. You did well. Now we prepare. The exchange happens in... She checked her watch. 17 hours. We have until then to find out where he's keeping Chitara and get her back before he ever reaches that beach. And if we can't find her? Adana asked, though she dreaded the answer. Detective Nwachukwu met her eyes. Then we pray your husband is a convincing liar, because if Atacon suspects this is a trap, if he thinks for 1 second that we're setting him up, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Adana's phone buzzed. Another message from the unknown number. This time it was a photo of Chitara, sitting on a bare mattress in a concrete room, her school uniform dirty, her eyes red from crying. But she was alive. She was whole. The message below read, Your daughter is brave. She keeps asking when Daddy is coming. You have 17 hours to make sure he does. Don't disappoint her. Adana pressed the phone to her chest, her tears finally breaking free. Across the table, Ngozi reached out and took her hand. For a moment, all the betrayal and anger melted away, replaced by something more primal. Two mothers united by fear for a child they both loved in different ways. We'll get her back, Ngozi whispered. I promise you, we'll get her back. But as Detective Nwachukwu's phone rang with an update from her team, the expression that crossed her face suggested the situation had just gotten far more complicated than any of them had imagined. What is it? Mama Okafor demanded. What did they find? Detective Nwachukwu put down her phone slowly. Atacon left the country 3 hours ago. Private jet to Accra, Ghana. Which means someone else is Chitara. Adana finished, her voice hollow. And we have no idea who. Betrayal upon betrayal. If Atacon didn't take Chitara, then who did? Drop your wildest theories in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and share this story. The fluorescent lights of the police station flickered as Detective Nwachukwu pulled up Atacon's flight records on her laptop. Adana leaned over her shoulder, her heart pounding so hard she could hear in her ears. The screen showed a private charter flight manifest. Atacon Ogunlai, destination Accra. Departure time 2:47 p.m., 30 minutes before Mrs. Badmus had even released Chitara from school. He couldn't have taken her, Kayamika said, voicing what everyone was thinking. He was already in the air when the kidnapping happened. Which means someone is using his name, Detective Nwachukwu said, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Someone who knew about the debt, knew about the pressure Chukwamika was under, and decided to take advantage of the situation. Chukwamika had gone pale. The man on the phone, that was Atacon's voice. I'd swear it was him. Voice recording. Ngozi said suddenly, it wouldn't be hard. Splice together clips from old phone conversations, add some background noise. But who would have access to Atacon's voice? Mama Okafor interrupted. Who would know enough about the debt to make it convincing? The room fell silent. Then, slowly, horribly, Adana felt puzzle pieces clicking into place in her mind. The forged signature on the school note. The intimate knowledge of their family drama. The perfect timing of everything. The courthouse confrontation. The moving trucks. The kidnapping happening while they were all distracted. Ngozi, Adana said quietly, turned to face the other woman. Your phone. Let me see the emails you showed us. The ones from Chukwamika's account. What? Why would? Just show me. Ngozi hesitated, then handed over her phone. Adana scrolled to the email thread with Atacon, her trained paralegal eye-catching details she'd missed in her earlier panic. The dates, the language patterns, the signature block. These emails, Adana said slowly, aren't from Chukwamika's main business account. Look at the address. It's similar, but not exact. Chukwamika's real email is seedokafor@okafortrading.com. This one is seedokafor@okafortodinko.com. Someone created a fake account to manufacture this entire debt. Detective Nwachukwu was already on her feet. Let me see that. She examined the emails, her expression darkening. The IP addresses will tell us who sent these. Johnson, She called an officer outside. "I need our tech team to trace these emails immediately." "But who would go through all this trouble?" Mama Okafor asked. "Who benefits from making us think Adekano kidnapped Chitara?" "Someone who wanted us chasing the wrong person," Detective Nwachukwu said grimly. "Someone who needed time while we were looking in the wrong direction. Someone who—" Her phone rang, cutting her off. She answered it, listened for 30 seconds, and her face transformed from confusion to fury. "Get units there now." "Yes, all of them. And send me the address." She hung up and grabbed her jacket. "We found Chitara. She's alive, she's safe, and you're not going to believe where she is." The police convoy tore through Lagos traffic, sirens wailing, as Detective Nwachukwu explained what her team had discovered. While they'd been focused on Adekano, a traffic camera near Chitara's school had captured the black car that picked her up. The license plate belonged to a rental company. The rental agreement had been signed by someone using a false name, but security footage from the rental office showed a face they all recognized. "It's not possible," Chukwemeka kept saying from the back seat. "It can't be him. Why would he?" The convoy pulled up outside a modest bungalow in Festac Town, a middle-class neighborhood far from the affluent areas where Adana and Chukwemeka usually operated. Police officers surrounded the building, weapons drawn. Detective Nwachukwu held up her hand, signaling them to wait. "Mrs. Okafor," she said to Adana, "I need you to stay in the car until we've secured." But Adana was already out, running toward the house. Mama Okafor and Kayamika right behind her. She could hear Detective Nwachukwu shouting, could hear the officers moving to intercept her, but nothing mattered except getting to her daughter. The front door burst open before she reached it, and there stood Chitara, her school uniform dirty but her face lit up with joy. "Mommy!" Adana fell to her knees, catching her daughter in her arms, sobbing into her hair. "Baby! Oh, my baby, I was so worried, I thought." "I'm okay, Mommy," Chitara said, her small voice muffled against Adana's shoulder. "Uncle Tun said we were playing a game. He said it was a surprise for Daddy." Adana's blood froze. She looked up. Tun Okafor stood in the doorway. Chukwemeka's younger brother, the family member everyone trusted, the responsible one who'd helped them move into this house 12 years ago, who came to every birthday party, every Christmas celebration, who Chitara called Uncle Tun with genuine affection. He smiled sadly at Adana. "I'm sorry," he said. "I truly am. But my brother needed to understand what it feels like to lose everything." Police officers swarmed past Adana, tackling Tun to the ground, cuffing his hands behind his back. He didn't resist. He just kept talking, his voice eerily calm. "Do you know what it's like," he said, "watching your older brother get everything? The business, the beautiful wife, the perfect life, all because he was born first, all because our father loved him more." Chukwemeka had emerged from the police car, his face ashen. "Tun, what are you talking about? Father loved us both equally." "Liar." The word erupted from Tun with shocking violence. "Father left you the business, left you the house in Suralere, left you the connections, the respect, everything. What did he leave me? A trust fund that wouldn't even buy a decent car, a position as your assistant in a company that should have been half mine. So you kidnapped my daughter?" Chukwemeka's voice shook. "Your own niece? To what? Teach me a lesson?" "To destroy you," Tun said simply. "The way you've been destroying yourself. I watched you sabotage your marriage. Watched you betray Adana with her best friend. Watched you create this elaborate scheme to run away from your responsibilities. And I thought, why should you get to escape? Why should you get to start over in Abuja while everyone else suffers?" Detective Nwachukwu pulled Tun to his feet. "So you created the fake emails. Made up a debt to a man who was conveniently out of the country. Used your intimate knowledge of the family to forge signatures and access information." "It wasn't hard," Tun said. "I've been handling Chukwemeka's business correspondence for years. I know his passwords, his security questions, his patterns. I knew about Adekano's real business trips. We used the same charter service. I knew about the offshore accounts because I helped set them up. I knew everything. But you didn't know," Mama Okafor said, stepping forward, her voice trembling with rage and grief, that I would kill you myself before letting you hurt my granddaughter. The slap she delivered echoed across the compound. Tun's head snapped aside, a red mark blooming on his cheek. "Mama," he started, but she cut him off. "Don't you mama me. I nursed you when you were sick. I paid your school fees when your father died. I gave you a job when no one else would hire you. And this is how you repay me? By terrorizing a 7-year-old child? By tearing this family apart. You gave Chukwamika the job," Tun corrected bitterly. "You made him CEO. I was just the assistant, remember? Always the assistant, never the partner. Because you were 22 years old and fresh out of university." Mama Okafor shouted. "Because Chukwamika had been working in the business for 8 years already. Because leadership is earned, not given. But you were always jealous, always bitter, always feeling sorry for yourself instead of working harder." Detective Nwachukwu intervened before the situation could escalate further. "Mr. Okafor, you're under arrest for kidnapping, extortion, forgery, and fraud. You have the right to remain silent." As they led Tund away, he looked back at Chukwamika one last time. "You still don't get it, do you? I didn't do this just for revenge. I did it to save you, to force you to see what you were throwing away. Your wife, your daughter, your family. You were going to lose them anyway. I just accelerated the process." "By kidnapping my child?" Chukwamika's voice broke. "By traumatizing her? By making everyone think she might die?" "She was never in danger," Tund insisted as the officers pushed him toward the police van. "I took care of her, fed her, let her watch cartoons. I was going to return her tomorrow after you'd learned your lesson." "The lesson?" Adana interrupted, still holding Chitara close. "Is that you're sick, that you need help, that jealousy and bitterness turned you into something monstrous." The police van door slammed shut, taking Tund away. Silence fell over the compound, broken only by Chitara's quiet question. "Mommy, why is Uncle Tund going away? Did I do something wrong?" "No, baby," Adana whispered, kissing her daughter's forehead. "You didn't do anything wrong. None of this is your fault." But as she looked up at Chukwamika, this man she loved, married, built a life with, only to discover he'd been living a lie, she wondered if anything would ever be right again. 3 months later, Adana stood in the Lagos High Court once more. But this time, she wasn't being pushed through doors. This time, she walked in with her head high, her daughter's hand in hers, and a team of lawyers who'd helped her navigate the most complicated divorce proceedings Lagos had seen in years. The judge, a different one this time, a woman named Justice Adeyemi, who had a reputation for fairness, reviewed the settlement agreement one final time. "Mr. Okafor," she said, looking at Chukwamika over her reading glasses, "do you agree to the terms as outlined? 50% of all marital assets to Mrs. Okafor, full custody of Chitara with supervised visitation rights for you, and child support payments of 500,000 naira monthly?" "Yes, Your Honor," Chukwamika said quietly. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 3 months. The scandal had cost him business contracts, social standing, and his mother's respect. But he'd shown up to every court date, signed every document, and, most surprisingly, started therapy. "And Mrs. Okafor, do you agree to these terms?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Then this court declares your marriage officially dissolved. You are both free to move forward with your separate lives." Justice Adeyemi's gaze softened. "And I hope, for your daughter's sake, that you can find a way to co-parent with respect and dignity." Outside the courthouse, Ngozi waited with Kemi. The 2 little girls had met properly a month ago, supervised by both mothers and a child psychologist. It had been awkward and emotional, but somehow the children had handled it better than the adults. They were half-sisters. They shared DNA. And slowly, carefully, they were building a relationship. "How did it go?" Ngozi asked. "It's done," Adana said. "Finally done." Ngozi nodded. She and Chukwamika had never reconciled. She'd realized, in the aftermath of the kidnapping, that she'd wasted 13 years loving a man who'd never really chosen her. Now she was focusing on Kemi, on building her own life, on healing from her own mistakes. "I'm moving back to Ibadan," Ngozi said. My mother needs help with her Accra business. And I think Kemi and I need a fresh start, away from Lagos, away from all these memories. I understand, Adana said, and surprisingly she did. Some bridges couldn't be rebuilt, some friendships couldn't be salvaged, but they could, maybe, learn to coexist peacefully for their daughter's sake. Mama Okafor appeared, having parked her car. She'd been Adana's staunchest supporter through everything, testifying in court about Chukwemeka's financial manipulations, opening her home to Adana and Chitara, even helping pay legal fees. "Come," she said to both women, "let me take you all for lunch. My treat. We've been through hell together. We deserve small chops and Chapman at the very least." As they walked toward Mama Okafor's car, two mothers, two daughters, and one grandmother united by trauma and survival, Adana felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The betrayal would always hurt. The scars would always remain. But she'd survived. She'd fought for herself and her daughter. She'd refused to be destroyed by the lies and manipulation of men who'd underestimated her strength. And most importantly, she'd learned that sometimes the people who hurt you the most are the ones who think they love you. Real love doesn't betray. Real love doesn't manipulate. Real love doesn't create secret families while pretending everything is perfect. Chitara tugged at her hand. "Mommy, can Kemi come to my birthday party next month?" Adana looked at Ngozi, who looked back at her. A silent understanding passed between them. Not forgiveness exactly, but acknowledgement. They'd both been victims of Chukwemeka's selfishness in different ways. They'd both survived, and their daughters deserved better than to inherit their mother's pain. "Yes, baby," Adana said. "Kemi can come to your party." As for Tund, he was awaiting trial on multiple charges. The family had collectively decided not to visit him in prison. Some betrayals were simply too deep to forgive. That evening, in her new apartment in Victoria Island, smaller than a matrimonial home, but hers alone, Adana tucked Chitara into bed. "Mommy, are you happy now?" her daughter asked, her eyes already drooping with sleep. Adana thought about it. Happy wasn't quite the right word. Healing, rebuilding, learning to trust again. Those were more accurate. But she smiled and kissed her daughter's forehead. "I'm getting there, baby, one day at a time." And as she turned off the light and closed the door, Adana realized something profound. She didn't need Chukwemeka to complete her story. She didn't need revenge or vindication, or even closure. She just needed to keep walking forward, raising her daughter with love and truth, building a life that was honest and real in her own. The domestic betrayal had nearly destroyed her. The infidelity had broken her heart, but it hadn't broken her spirit, and that, she decided, was victory enough. Thank you for following Adana's journey through betrayal and survival. If this story touched your heart, please like this video. Subscribe to Echoes of Africa for more powerful, true-to-life African stories, and share this with anyone who needs to hear a story of resilience and strength. Comment below, what was the most shocking moment for you, and where are you watching from? Your support means everything to this channel. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our next emotional story. Remember, you are stronger than any betrayal. Until next time, stay blessed